Hey, Max.
Hey Chris, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Back-to-back Zoom calls, and it ran a little bit long, but you know what it's like right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure. No problem. No problem.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization, and then what you're passionate about, and we'll kick it off.
All right, sure. So my name is Max Stucki. I'm from Finland, currently located in central Finland. Very snowy here, very cold. I work as foresight analysis manager for Futures Platform, a Helsinki-based company. We help our clients to make sense of future, identify trends, make scenarios, do all kinds of foresight activities with which they need help. We have a digital foresight tool, and that's what we are developing. And my role is in managing the content creation process. So we analyze different kinds of information and produce then foresight intelligence or futures intelligence for our clients about that. You know,
That's
and what
interesting. So
I'm
you actually have a tool that will sort of do the foresight for you, or how does it actually work?
well, foresight always requires like human work and human input, and but it helps our clients. It helps them visualize the foresight results. It helps them to do horizon scanning a little bit easier because we provide them with an ample amount of information and easy way to make sense of it and to engage their stakeholders and their own experts to make sense of the information. So yeah, it helps, but still takes human work because all analysis in the end is made by humans.
So does it actually just allow them to organize the signals that are coming in, or does it actually go out there and find signals? Or can you tell me a bit about how it operates?
Right, sure, yeah. So the end result is visual. It's like a radar screen, and it helps you to organize the information in that sense. Like the further away you are from the center of the screen, the further away the trends or phenomena are affecting your organization. But it also contains a database of ready-made, like we call it futures intelligence. But it's very like pre-chewed information for you, which you can very easily access and which you can very easily manage, and which you can very easily then also deliver to your colleagues to get them to participate in the foresight process and the knowledge creation process. So it facilitates all those steps.
Interesting. So, but it does. So it does have pre-built content already built into the
Yeah,
system, and then you can add your own. So it's almost like,
yeah,
do you clone a bit of it for your own use, and then just modify it yourself so that you can work in your own space?
exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's subscription based, so you get access to the tool, you get access to the content, and then you can add your own content, and if you need, and then it helps. It lets you to prioritize with the tools like voting or rating in a two by two matrix and so forth. So it's quite versatile.
Excellent. So, I mean, you and I think, both understand the value of strategic foresight, bringing foresight into an organization. How do you help to convince corporate innovators and their leadership that something like this is important? Because I know that a lot of times, the companies that I work with, it's kind of like, foresight is great, but we're concerned about what's going to happen next month or the next 3 months. How do we get the leaders to sort of look up and look further out so that they can so we can use these kind of tools?
Yeah, I guess that's something that most in this field have been wrestling with. And well, of course, this last pandemic has raised awareness about the need for foresight. It's well, it's good for the field of foresight, but it's very unfortunate that it came in this way. But anyway, that has raised awareness a lot. On the other hand, I think a very useful thing has been just to deliver examples like what other firms have been doing. The classic example is, of course, Shell, how they did the scenarios already way back in 1970s. And that's one way. Or another way is just to like, of course, we cannot divulge like what our other clients are doing, but giving like general insights. It has been used for this, it has been used for that. It has been found useful, for instance, very often in strategy, like identifying the key major areas on which our clients should focus or for which they should prepare for. And I think examples are extremely powerful, like driving the point home.
Is there any way to get a solid ROI out of this? Like you can say that, because of this foresight work, we were able to provide like, this much of a percentage of ROI on what actually happened. So have you been able to do that?
Um, I think with our clients, we can. Like they don't share like information. Like the information sharing is one thing. Of course, there's the general research done, for instance, by René Rohrbeck. You must be very familiar with his work, and he has calculated some of the growth figures for companies that do foresight. We use those figures because, as I said, like the companies we work with, and many organizations are not they're not very happy to share their like views exactly because it may give away some important insights into their strategy, for example. But I would be more than happy to do that, like if it was would be possible in the future.
So I guess the question I have then is that how would you say that the value, like how do you justify the value of the foresight work to your typical company? So you're coming into an organization, let's say it's a financial services company, they've been around for a long time, and we want to say to them, listen, you do need, this is something that you need so to help you guide you into the future. I mean, how do you convince a company like that this is a service that they should be using?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and it depends also on the personality who's doing this stuff. But for me, foresight is first and foremost. It's about like applied common sense done in a very systematic manner. And if I would go to a client, for instance, in this case, this organization you named, I would present them a very systematic way of, first of all, analyzing their current operating environment, and then doing or taking them through an exercise of horizon scanning about analyzing what could emerge in the future, and making them aware that many things that affect us and what can affect our clients do emerge from outside of their fields. And it is only retrospectively that they actually can say that, yeah, such thing happened. And the pandemic is, of course, it's the unfortunately great example of this. Like it did take place. It came entirely out of the blue, so to say. Of course, we were all aware that it's a possibility, but who took it seriously? Even I'm afraid to say, even though people in the public sector didn't take it seriously, and at first, and that's why we are in the situation as we are, in which we are. Yeah, but that's how I would like sell it as a way of systematically think about the current situation and think about the future and take into account things that are really relevant, and to prepare for a little bit longer term future, because like 2 years ahead, a couple of quarters ahead, you can pretty much operate with your current data, but farther than that, it's difficult.
So you were talking about accuracy a little while ago. So how do you measure yourself on, did you hit the targets you were looking for? So have you ever done this sort of like strategic foresight where you say, okay, this is what we think is going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, and then compared it to what actually happened, and then look at some variability in those numbers to say, hey, this is how many times we actually hit the mark?
Right. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of looking 10 years back yet. Like we are a 5-year-old company, so
Okay.
it's
Well,
not
how about
great.
5 years? Have you been able to say, hey,
Yeah.
what we predicted 5 years ago is happening
Yeah.
today?
Yeah. Like that's like, first of all, I want to stress we rarely do give like quantified quantified information. First of all, because It's normally just based on trend extrapolations. We do provide those to some extent for some of our trends, but we seek to provide qualitative information because that's what our customers use in their workshops. They have themselves the numbers, they can crunch them. But other than that, we are of course following how well we are staying on the mark, and if there's something that has already been realized in our database, of course we seek to make it clear that okay, this is done. We're done with this. We have had some pretty good hits, I would say. We were talking about unrest in the United States already a couple of years back, or like violent unrests. And we were talking about pandemics beforehand, and other such things. Those are the two examples which come to my mind now, at the top of my head. But we have a lot of things, and we like constantly monitor our trends. We go through them on a regular basis, and if it seems that we are way off, we of course correct our estimation and seek to make it clear that this is now what we think about the issue.
So do you do those kind of things then? So say I was to subscribe for to the service, and I would just sort of I can use it out of the box without making any changes to it, and I can say, okay, I can use this plan to help map out my 2, 3, 4, 5 year plan. But then I can go in and actually add my own signals and my own content, and then that would change how it works, or can I just use it out of the box as is?
Yeah, you can. Like we have over 700 like trends which have been analyzed by us, and they have a description. Those are like strictly off the shelf. Like anybody can use them who has the subscription. But you can add your own things there, and the tool also like it enables feeding in signals from a wider organization. So you basically have all your people, if you so wish, acting as a sensors who feed in signals they find. And you can use it in both ways. Our customers some are using more our own content, some are adding their own. Depends always on the use case. But yeah, both are possible.
So it works either way. It works either way.
It works either way, yeah.
So have you've been able to successfully market this to like what size organizations do you typically talk to?
Larger ones now, lately, larger ones. I think I cannot name any names other than those which are found on our website. But insurance companies, public organizations like ministries, departments, various departments, large share multinational corporations. Of course, we are in Finland, so many Finnish corporations, of course, the larger ones. We have not very many like small players as our customers. That's not like they're very welcome as well. But of course, the larger actors, they just have the resources needed to make foresight. So that's like it's also a resource question or resource question.
Are you finding that there's a lot more interest in it now? Because I talked to a futurist a couple of interviews ago, and he was saying one of the toughest things to do is to actually pitch the whole concept of strategic foresight into these organizations, and just to educate people on how useful something like this is. Are you finding that it's easier now, that more people are open to it, or do you find that it's about the same as it's always been?
Well, I'm not exactly in the customer front. Like that's why it's a little bit difficult for me to assess. But based on what I have heard recently, there is like an upsurge in interest, and it has taken place within the last year, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, like there is a growing awareness about the need for strategic foresight, for strategic or incorporating foresight into the planning activities to take into account also the coming years, not just the next quarter or so. And in that, I have definitely seen a change as I'm working with customers. It's like it's no more. I don't have to like defend the proposition that they need foresight. They have already bought it. They have already accepted it. Yeah.
Right. And it's like when you were mentioning the pandemic and the unrest, it's like those are kind of black swans, right? So how do you, did your tool actually come out and say, this is what we think is going to happen? Or, I mean, I'm assuming there's like a percentage accuracy. Like, how does it actually present these kinds of things? I mean, is it more of a, here's a bunch of stuff that could happen that we think that might happen? Or are there probabilities, or how would it actually visually represent it? I noticed you were talking about the radar screen where like this trend is closer than that. Is that how that was represented?
Well, we're seeking like extremely easy to understand and like intuitive way of presenting the trends. So we are relying on color codes. Like on the radar, the trends appear as dots. If it's green, it's getting stronger. It's like very visual, like anybody can confirm, okay, this is happening. It's like statistically proven that it's there. Blue ones are getting weaker. It's exactly the same thing with them. But these low probability wild cards, low probability, high impact events, they're presented as red dots. And what we say is usually it's like between 5 and 30% that they can appear. But like they are entirely possible, but they are just a little bit more unlikely. But if they take place, it's, well, many things change. It happens. Yeah.
And if I were to sign up for this, would I just be able to use it out of the box without actually having to do anything? I could just like watch the dashboard, and as time goes by, I could say, okay, here's 2022, 2023, 2024. Can I actually, is there like a time slider which will tell me here's what I think things are going to be like in that time frame? Or
yeah, like if you would start using it, you could create your own radars, or you could use radars which are created by us. And we have created a lot of radars for different purposes, for different industries, for public sector actors, for those interested in geopolitics and so forth. And the radar is structured in such a way that the center represents the current moment, and the further out you go, the further out in the future you are. And we update the radars regularly. So if our customers get always our latest view on how things develop. And yeah, so it's basically very easy to start using it. Setting it up takes just a couple of minutes.
so the other thing that you mentioned there was that people would be able to enter their own signals. And actually, we talked about that already. How much of the tool itself is human driven, and how much of it is AI and other sort of machine learning stuff?
Yeah, great question. We use like in our work, in our horizon scanning work, we use news robots. We use them to search specific things, to keep us up to date on developments in various fields. And that's like where we are incorporating the machine element into the play. But then the analysis and like picking up the trends, it's human driven. And we really see value in that trained humans actually go through the information, make their best assessments, and then the whole end product is reviewed within our own company, so that there are at least two people who either concur or then disagree about the analysis we have written. So we seek to provide always human created but machine assisted analysis on the trends.
Well, that's good. Well, you do need that combination, because a lot of times you can't possibly process that huge pile of incoming data without those things.
Yeah, exactly. Like how I look at this is I've taken more or less the intelligence angle. Like you can have the best gadgets in the world delivering the information to you, but it's in the end it's the human who actually makes the decision. Okay, this is important or this isn't important. And moreover, the most important part is, of course, like what does this mean? Is this meaningful? Or what meaning does this have? And that's always falls into human hands.
Right. Well, I'm curious to know how you deal with truth. Yeah, considering considering the way, when you mentioned news robots, immediately like my radar went up saying, oh my God, news robots,
Yeah.
like 99% of the time, at least when the news that I'm reading, it's like, it's not 100% accurate. Let's just call it
Yeah.
that to be nice.
Yeah.
How do you separate the wheat from the chaff? How do you separate the truth from the fake?
Yeah. That's a great question. We've been doing a lot of work with that. Um, one thing is that, of course, when we are writing the trends or the phenomena descriptions, we will always like check that is this news source reliable, and we try to check, like cross-check. Okay, this source claims that this happened. For instance, can I find the confirmation for this from an other source? And that's very basic, like what we do, the checking that, okay, is this reliable? On the internet, there are like lists of unreliable or reliable news sources, and those can be used to an extent. The lists are not exhaustive by any means, but it is like if you can find confirmation for some information from multiple sources, of which you can deem reliable, then we proceed with that. And considering the news robot, we have our own handpicked list of news sources that we deem reliable, and we are expanding that source list as we go along, as much as we can. And of course, if some source is not reliable or becomes so later on, it will be picked out. So we are paying a lot of attention on that one, on this issue. Very important thing.
Geez, I would pay money for that as a separate product because I haven't been able to find. I mean, it's like news is so politicized nowadays that it's almost impossible to determine what the truth is. So I just find it amazing that anybody can actually do that. So kudos to you if you can actually figure out.
Well, we are doing our best, so thanks. But it's a difficult world right now, unfortunately. Truth is elusive.
That's right. And of course, there's a friend of mine who says there is no such thing as truth. And I'm like, no, I think there's definitely truth. There's some things out there that are absolutely true. And we just need to get directly to them. And it's difficult to do that.
Absolutely.
So what was I going to ask? So we talked about foresight. We talked about engaging stakeholders. I mean, do you think that this is it's just going to continue growing, this trend, or people actually looking forward and wanting to see further out into the future? Or do you think we're going to get to a point where it's like, okay, we're fine, especially when you see all this disruption? I think this is what triggers it. Like when you have a disruption like the pandemic, or you have a disruption like unrest or whatever happening, I think people will say, okay, I'm having trouble handling this right now. I'd really love to be able to have some further vision into the future so I can plan what I'm doing. Do you think this is continuously going to get better, or do you think there's going to be more work in this space, or do you think we're going to sort of like level out and go back to more of a steady state?
Yeah. Well, I think there are a couple of angles you could take on this. Like on the one hand, foresight is a market. It's a marketplace, and every market reaches its saturation point. That's somewhere at some point in the future. On the other hand, like foresight and related fields they're very much still in the making. Like especially research-wise, there are huge amounts to be done. And I think the further the research goes in the academic field, the better we can actually utilize the techniques, or better we understand what works and what doesn't, and that will further drive the market. But for the foreseeable future, for the lack of a better term, I think the market is going to expand, and I think it's very good, because it somehow feels that now we actually are taking seriously our capability of actually rationally think and methodologically think about the future. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and hopefully the market will grow for a long time to come.
Yeah. Well, I think from my perspective, I foresee that there's definitely going to be a lot more AI involved in the mix, because it's just the data sources just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And how do you determine how do you determine the probabilities when you have all these possible outcomes, right? And it just reminds me of, I don't know if you're a science fiction fan, but if you've ever read Ian Banks' Culture series, there's this one book where he talks about how AI is going to predict the future. It basically creates simulations of the world, right? It creates multiple millions of simulations of the world and all the actors in it, and then it runs those simulations, and then it says what's the most predictable outcome
Right.
based on those simulations. Do you think we're ever going to get to something like that?
Oh, tough question. I definitely think that the AI component it will become much more important in Foresight. The programs will get better, like without doubt. To what extent, that's an open question. I really can't say. But I'm following the field with much excitement and with much interest. And I really do hope that we can develop very useful AI tools for the Foresight use. And I think it will help us at least in the, let's say, in the coming years, in the coming decade or so, in like getting out of our thinking, or not getting out, but like identifying in our thinking the most important factors that we should consider. And that's something that is always hard work to actually get out the most meaningful change trajectories, and yeah, or to figure those out. Yeah, I think it will help with that, at least.
I know you can't really talk about any specific client, but are there any customers that actually did a big, like, made a complete decision change based on what the data that you provided to them?
That's a good question, because many of our clients, when we engage them or when they take up our product, we run workshops for them. But after that, they're just basically on the subscription. I can't say because I don't do the follow-up. Unfortunately, I would love to give you an example, but I just can't. My knowledge on this is very limited. But I do know, what I can say is that our clients have become aware of developments that they necessarily didn't take as seriously before, and which at least have the potential to force them to consider new strategies which may be a little bit unorthodox for them, or have been. And that I'm absolutely sure, and I have seen that myself. So that much I can tell you.
Yeah, well, that's important, because I mean, when it comes to decision making, you definitely need to have as much information as possible. And if you've been able to provide things that they weren't visible to them before, I think that's key, right? So that's really important. So let's talk
Absolutely.
about the future. Let's talk about the future of Foresight work. Then it's the year 2031, 10 years from now. Where do you think you'll be? Where do you think your customers will be? Where do you think the world will be?
Great. Yeah. Well, let's say that I've stayed with the same company, which would be very interesting, because the field, from here I can see very nicely how the field is developing. 2031. I think, first of all, that the understanding both within the company and outside of it about how to do systematic foresight has improved very much, meaning that we have very robust methodologies of handling the information. I think there will be like cross adoption from intelligence, the theory of intelligence, but they will also adapt from foresight. I think that's going to happen a lot more. We will be using a lot more machine learning or applications thereof to understand, like to understand trends, but also to track or get early warning signals based on indicators which are derived from various scenarios. And that I think AI will help very much. And those are some of the things which I at least hope I will see, like new tools and better methodologies, because those are something that I think are in dire need of development right now. Very much so. Yeah.
So are you spearheading some of that in your own R&D?
We are, yes. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Can
So
tell you.
your tool will continuously So if I were subscribed to your tool, then I would get to take advantage of these improvements in your own process in being able to
Yeah,
find
yeah,
trends.
absolutely, absolutely. Like we are driving or we are striving to be the best in our field. Like it's a it's a huge aim, but I think you shouldn't settle for anything less. Like we really want to deliver always new kinds of value, new kind of value to our customers, and we are considering many things to how to develop them and how to implement them to our tool and how to make foresight much more intuitive, much easier for our customers in the sense that they don't have to get bogged down in thinking about how to use different tools, which tools should we adopt. We want to get them thinking about the future themselves, like making the decisions or at least thinking about how they should plan ahead, what they should prepare for. But that should be their job, not like worrying about the tools, not worrying about how to get the information.
Right.
That's our
So
goal.
you were mentioning there was a lot of Finnish companies in your customer
Yeah.
set. Is your vision is global, right? So is there a way for me to filter it down to a smaller area? So let's say I'm a US based company and I'm really only mostly concerned with things that affect the United States. Are you able to filter by geography like that?
Yeah, yeah. Like if we speak about the very basics, like how to use the product, yeah, you can basically just do searches. Like you can search for the content. We are working towards like more regional information, and that's something that we have recognized that we need. That is something that our customers absolutely need, and that is something that's currently under development. And we are hoping we can provide more localized information soon on insights in the local trends and so forth. So yeah, you can do that already now, but you can do it also, or you can do it better in the future. But I would say that already now you can, as a US based, or if you're a US based company, you can already find like very many very relevant trends and issues from our database.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you and talk more about the software, what's the best way?
Well, the best way is either to visit our website, futuresplatform.com, and you can send me an email, max.stucki@futuresplatform.com. I think you will probably put the contact information up there in the
Oh yeah,
video.
I'll definitely put that all in the show
Right.
notes. I'll definitely put that all in the
Yeah.
show notes.
Yeah. That's
And so basically, you're looking for your target market was bit larger companies and
right.
corporate innovators, leadership in these
Right.
companies to help them, build their strategic plans.
Yeah, but I would like encourage anyone who's interested in foresight just to have a look, and I'm sure you can always find a good. We can always find a good solution for you. Unfortunately, it's not so much that um, we wouldn't be suitable for smaller actors. It's just that they don't necessarily always have the internal resources to do foresight, even though it would be highly beneficial and it doesn't have to take up that much capacity. Like it can be done in a smaller scale, but with great benefits.
Well, I think that this is probably using a tool like this is probably more important for some of the smaller organizations because they don't have any internal folks who are
Right.
using it. It's just like you want the leadership to be able to just get on there and take advantage of the tool without having to have internal folks in there. Because I mean, if you ask me, I think every company should have a corporate futurist or at least somebody in the leadership team
Absolutely.
who does do that looking forward. Because a lot of times, I've been in organizations where there's the CEO and the leadership team. You think they'd be the ones looking forward, but it
Right.
doesn't happen, right? There's other groups within the organization that look forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm assuming that a leadership team in a smaller organization would be able to use your tool to get the value out of the strategic foresight without having the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been like feeling that the larger organizations they already have the understanding that they need foresight, but it's only slowly creeping into the smaller organizations. And I think they are thinking that okay, we are small, we are agile, or we cannot affect the future the way we want, so we don't have to do foresight. But based on my current understanding on how I see the field, I think also in that sector, the understanding is changing, and I hope it will totally be transformed in the coming couple of years.
Well, if you ask me, everybody needs foresight and everybody needs a futurist. So
absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much. It's been great talking with you, and talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.